Thanks for joining me today, Ruth. Ruth Ann,
Wow.
excuse me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me today.
Does that happen all the time? My grandmother's name is actually Mary Ann, and it always used to bother me when people would call her Mary. Is that?
It is. It happens a lot because, it's Ruth Ann Rose,
Yeah.
right? So I get Roseanne a lot.
Oh,
So yeah, it happens a lot, but that's okay. I'll answer to anything that's polite.
yeah, right. Well, Rose, I mean, just beautiful last name and goes so well, your business, Rose Marketing Solutions.
Hmm.
So kind of when I first heard of Rose Marketing, I was like, wow, what a pretty name. And then turns out it's your last name. So natural fit.
Well, I will say when John Rose asked me to marry him, I was like, Ruth Ann Rose. Yeah, yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, it flows so
It
nicely.
does.
It's
It
meant to
does.
be. Well, how did you, get started kind of in the marketing industry
Hmm.
and, decide to launch a business of your own?
Well, this particular business really, it's a long story. I'll try to make it short, but it really happened back in 2008. At the time, I was a sales rep. I had a bunch of different lines that I was selling mostly to salons and spas, boutiques. And one of all things was an organic goat's milk soap that was
Oh.
beautifully packaged, really high gift endy. But in 2008, there was a recession.
Mm.
So where I had been traveling to, Chicago, LA, Atlanta, and Dallas, doing gift shows for those store owners to come and find the products. In 2008, a lot of those boutique owners couldn't travel. So I had to find a way of how do I, of course, again, 2008, the internet is not what it is today. How do I get these women wholesale buyers and individual women to find these products online? And so I just began this, on the self journey of how do you get attention for a product so that people want to buy it. It
Mm.
just so happened at the same time my husband was helping a childcare owner in the Dallas area to build his preschool. And so my husband John had talked to Paul, that particular owner, about, Ruth Ann is experimenting on the internet with how to get women in particular to find products. And Paul was like, well, that's pretty interesting. Why don't you invite her to lunch? And I love new ideas. New ideas give me that jolt of energy. So I started brainstorming, had lunch, and I said, oh, here's all the things that I think you could do to make the women in your local area, help them find your school. And he was like, great, go do it. And I was like, well, I don't really know how. And he's like, great, go learn. So what really happened in the beginning is I was paid to be self-taught with how to get local women around a preschool to be aware that it was open and to come in for tours. So flash forward, my team now represents, we've got about 150 childcares that we do local marketing for. Most of our relationships have been 8+ years. So we have really learned to embrace those relationships and really find joy in helping childcare owners. And
Wow.
that's really how we started.
Wow, that's amazing. And so you mentioned your team, and
Hmm.
150 childcare centers. That's very impressive. Can you tell us a little bit about, what services you and your team provide to those centers?
Oh, sure. So most of what we're doing is, to put it very succinctly, is we fill classrooms of childcares, right? So we're using Google Ads, Facebook ads, social media content, some website content, lots of CRM content.
Mm.
I think I said social media already, but basically those type of um, services are what we provide because each of those methods that we're using really provides that school with a new front door, right? You've got the front door of the physical school, but now with
Mhm.
the internet, there are many front doors to your childcare. So we're trying to make sure anywhere a parent is landing in their search, whether it's passive or actively seeking childcare, that they find the school and that the school has a great first impression.
Yes, I love putting it that way as a new front door. That's
Hmm.
amazing. Well, given your experience, and your expertise managing all these different front doors, which channel would you say is maybe the most essential for childcare providers today?
You know, there's different ways to answer the question, but most of the time when a child care owner comes to us, what they're really looking for is something to drive enrollment, something to get more people in the
Hmm.
door. So we all need know through our personal lives when you need something, one of your first instincts, of course, is to go to Google, right, and type in you know, daycare near me, restaurant near me, whatever the search is. So Google ads are generally where we're going to recommend that people start. We've got a great track record of return on ad spend on Google. Um, but typically, if a parent's in need, that's where they're going to go first. Now, you have to be top of mind, right, as well. So when your school pops up on that search, it's helpful if they've already heard of you. And that's where the social media, comes in. That's where great website content comes in. That's where having your maps updated. A lot of people forget that Apple Maps is becoming more and more prevalent, and Yelp actually feeds information to Apple Maps. So if you hate Yelp and you ignore Yelp, guess
Yeah.
what? Your Apple Maps, aren't really going to say the right information. Same thing about your Google page in Google Maps. We just need to make sure people are becoming more self-aware of
Hmm.
all those different digital footprints or digital front doors that they have. So Google Ads is usually the number one if you need enrollment. Um, Ultimately, the best channel though is running a great school. When you run a great school with parents that love you and staff that love you, that's the best marketing dollars of all, right? Because
Yeah.
everybody, if they love something, becomes a brand ambassador for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but yeah, Facebook and Instagram are going to be great ways to build the brand. And we know the parent audience is getting younger. So,
Yeah.
definitely need to be on Instagram, as well as Facebook. Um, but I would think that's probably where most people need to spend their marketing dollars initially. Um, but again, engaging on social media gives your prospective audiences, which we know you've got more than one audience, right? You've got your enrolled families who you're
Hmm.
always wanting to reassure they made a great choice. You
Yeah.
want to make sure prospective parents who see you in social media are very aware that you've got a great family community, so they'll want to be a part of it. Your enrolled staff, you want them to be proud of where
Hmm.
they work, and you want to show the world how great you treat your staff. And then prospective staff members too, right? You want them to be able to peek in and say, oh, that is a great place to work. So yeah, marketing channels can be a little varied, but just remembering your audience is super important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And to call it back to your first tip, I love touching on the importance of Apple Maps because I think
Hmm.
that's something that can be forgotten about so easily because there's so many places, where you're managing your online
Absolutely.
presence, as you know. And I actually recently had a doctor's appointment and I didn't realize they had changed location. So when I typed into Apple Maps on my phone, it took me to the old location. I'm like, oh, I'm here 10 minutes early. I'll finish up some emails in the car. So I'm waiting. And then it's time for the appointment. I walk up and I'm like, wait a minute, there's no one in here. So then I'm
Yeah.
10 minutes late to go to their new location. So, yeah, it was
Yeah.
a bit of a mess. But I also find, when I'm looking for like a new hairstylist or even new restaurants to try, I'm always looking on what's close by on the map.
Exactly.
Sometimes not even going to the actual Google or Safari app itself. So
Hmm.
it's interesting that Yelp feeds into that. I did not know that.
Yeah, most people don't. And of course, let's face it, childcare owners, they're so busy trying to run a nurturing preschool, a loving preschool,
Mhm.
a
Yeah.
profitable preschool. Most did not get into business thinking they had to be digital marketers as well. So usually one of the foundational things we start with is we tell the owners, hey, let's just Google your school and let's see all the places that you appear. And let's make sure every one of those has the right phone number, right address, has great pictures, something that will want to attract people to the school. And I think we just sometimes forget that. We're so busy running the physical location that you forget there's a whole world of invitations sitting out there. I really do think each place you are digitally is an invitation to somebody to come visit. And you don't extend typically, unless you're a really great casual entertainer, typically you're going to know that you're going to invite somebody. You're aware of the invitation you've put out, and you're going to make sure everything's ready before the guests arrive. But I think what happens sometimes is we put the invitation out there and we don't get everything ready for those guests. And remembering to do that digitally is really important.
Yeah. And you mentioned making sure there's inviting photos, for example.
Hmm.
Um, and that's a perfect segue into my next question, which was what content do you feel is most important for providers to share on their social media or websites, emails, to attract prospective families?
Oh, sure. That's a great question. You know, um, we always joke it's happy, right? It's in
Hmm.
social media, happy faces, happy children, happy teachers, happy parents, happy food, which that sounds silly, but There's a
Yeah.
lot of pictures of food out there in the world. Showing pictures of children engaging purposefully in your curriculum and telling people what the point of each activity is. But
Yeah.
ultimately, smiling faces and social media always get a great message across. Again, what you're really, this is tough. Childcare owners are providing nurturing environments for children. They are providing educational opportunities for children. But ultimately, what they're selling to parents is peace of mind.
Absolutely.
A
Yeah.
parent has to feel peace of mind. And so through social media and the other channels with pictures, like you just mentioned, it's showing that environment that children
Mhm.
are happy here, they're safe, they're making friendships, they're engaging with adults, in a meaningful way. That's all the type of photos that are really, really important on
Yeah.
all these platforms, the Yelps, the Google, social media. Just being sure you're portraying that peace of mind environment for parents, because ultimately, that's where it all starts. That's where my story began. Um, when I walked into my first childcare owner's lobby, I witnessed one of those moments where there was a very distraught mother and a very distraught child trying to separate from each other. Obviously they had a tough morning. And I watched Karen, this director, approach the mom and take the child, and the child immediately relaxed. And she's telling mom, "Hey, I got this, it's
Mhm.
okay." And then watching that mother leave, I'm sure she was not aware we were watching her, but she goes outside, her back is to us, and I see her do that deep cleansing breath, that
Mhm.
and she squared her shoulders, and then she got in her car, and then she could go start her day and do what she did best. That was a moment I realized childcare,
Yeah.
what a difference we can all make, right? So my goal of helping childcare owners to fill their seats has a bigger passion for me too. It also means that children are getting early foundations and early learning because they're our future leaders, right? And we want those great connections to be made, and we want parents to have the ability to go make the difference they make in the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, peace of mind. You just have to remember you're selling peace of mind. The the formula that happens a lot though in digital marketing is parents are still thinking daycare. So you need
Mhm.
to be sure too that in all your descriptions of yourself, the word daycare is in there somewhere. You can say we're more than a daycare, not your normal daycare, because that's a key search term. You
Yeah.
know that you're an academic preschool, an early learning center, a child care, but daycare is still the number one search term. So again, you have to remember to use that periodically in a very positive way in your digital marketing.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. And the photos, I think that can be somewhat of a daunting task to
Mm-hmm.
owners and directors. They're like, well, how am I going to find the time to get photos of these students or, my teachers? How are they going to find time to do this? But, and I can only speak to really LineLeader, but any, parent engagement app that providers are using typically has photos.
Right.
So for us, it's, when a teacher records a curriculum moment or a milestone, they can
Exactly.
put up a photo. And so there's probably a wealth of photos already, you know, at your fingertips that you can use on your website and in your social media and
Absolutely.
other marketing efforts. So
Yeah, I
definitely,
would think just keeping those somewhere in
yeah,
a folder where they're easy to get hold of. That helps marketers like myself when we have great pictures to use. But yeah, the curriculum coordinator and teachers are really essential because they will know the point of why the picture was taken.
hmm
What was that activity based upon? What was the curriculum objective? But really, happy faces, happy kids, kids making friendships, healthy
yeah,
food. I mean, talk about a parent feeling like they
yeah.
have this. That's what gives them that peace of mind.
Yes. And one tip I would definitely extend to our listeners is to include a clause in your, and I don't know if you agree or have other thoughts on this, Ruth Ann, but to include a clause in your parent handbook about marketing, just so
Hmm.
you can kind of cover yourself if there's ever a question about, oh, use my child in an email send or social media or whatever it may be.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, well, you signed the parent handbook and there's actually a line item in there that mentions
absolutely.
that. So, and
Yeah.
encouraging parents to read the parent handbook, of course. I know that's a whole nother struggle, but
That's another talk. Yeah, I'm
right.
really, really glad you brought that up because we do know there's times when it's not safe to put certain children's pictures out there. So that's where you
Mhm.
have to get creative. Like you can take the pictures maybe from behind the children, or a shot of the hands, doing the activity. So there's lots of ways you can be creative, but yes, definitely make sure you've got photo releases signed. That's super important.
Yes. Well, so as we talk about local businesses and these centers, being really a big part of their communities that they serve,
Mhm.
um, what's the best way, maybe aside from or in partnership with digital marketing, that these owners, directors, marketers can spread the news about their center
Mhm.
just with the people that they serve right around them in that local community?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm always going to return to my number one answer is if you are running a great school where people feel loved and honored, part of something bigger than themselves, they're going to naturally help spread the word. So that's always my number one. You just, happy people love being your brand ambassador. We've had schools that have actively participated in the local elementary schools, carnivals, things of that nature, having a booth representing themselves at neighborhood events. Often
Mhm.
some of those neighborhood associations have events you can attend and maybe have a booth where you're just doing, the face painting or something like that. You just want to be, present. I've had schools who have provided um, books, lower level reading books for children, like for pediatric waiting offices, where the
Mm,
book they actually put a sticker, this book donated by, such and such school, because talk about a captive audience when moms are in the waiting room, and
yeah.
to read to the children, that's another great idea. This is digital, but a lot of local PTAs do sell ad spots on their PTA websites. So that can be another place. A lot of them too will allow you to post digital flyers on their community section, maybe the district's websites or the local elementaries. But
Mhm.
ultimately, having that great relationship with the local elementaries is a good thing to do too, to get to know those administrators, make sure they're aware you've got an after school program or a before school program. Those are all pretty thoughtful. And yeah, so those are some basic ideas I think that would help. But overall, having your families and employees say great things about you is always going to be a great idea.
Definitely. I could not agree more. And what are your thoughts on any kind of referral incentive type programs?
Hmm. I love them. I don't know how. A lot of our schools have them. I don't know how active they are in actually continuing to put that referral program in front of their parents. But it's a great thing to do, especially if you can have something at the front desk that reminds people, we want more people like you. And when you
Hmm.
send us people like you, we want to reward you. Typically, I've seen programs where it's, when the new family stays for 2 months or 3 months, right? There needs to be some longevity. And then both parties get rewarded with something. It could be a little hard to track sometimes. But I think
Hmm.
that kind of a program could be really beneficial just to always let parents know we love you, we want more people like you, and we want to reward you for it. But also reward the new family as well can be a nice thing to do. Um, and that can be done pretty easily through your, emails that LineLeader does and things like that as well, or QR codes.
Hmm.
Trying to think what else. Yeah, I mean, typically it's just nice to reward both parties and make it with some longevity. I wouldn't give a free week to both parties. Like the first week that first party is there, right? You want them to stick probably at least 6 weeks. But it's a good idea. I don't know that all schools necessarily do it, but it's a lovely idea.
Yeah.
Ultimately, most people just love to refer people to the school they love. And so again, if you go back to I run a great school and my families feel valued and my teachers feel valued, they're going to
Mhm.
recommend you just because they love you.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So once these centers have spread the word and maybe they've, reached full capacity, how do they maintain a good reputation in the community over time?
Yeah, that's always a good thing because I know a good reputation continues to tell your story, right? And people want to see recent stories. And so when I'm talking about recent stories, I'm really talking about what we typically think of as reviews, which I really like to change that terminology. I think when we ask people for a review, it's not the right mindset. I think we should be asking people to share your experience with others. And please use Google or Facebook, to do that. I think when you ask them to share their experience, it just makes them think of the most recent thing they were happy with, especially if you ask parents. I'm just going to lose this. um, After a happy event, such as, I'm sorry, I'm trying again, preschool graduation, or a Mother's Day tea, something they've been happy with, is a great time to ask more people to share their experiences. So that's a good way to maintain your reputation. We do provide reputation management. Um, Part of that is to continually ask people, but you want it to be a slow trickle. You don't want 5, 10, 20 good reviews coming in all in one day. That kind of tells the algorithms something's not right, right?
Right.
So you're always kind of looking for that slow trickle of good, steady experiences about your school. We do know that some will be challenging to respond to, and there's also those that are loving and kind. But our real recommendation for maintaining your reputation is to answer reviews. When a good
Mm-hmm.
review comes in, tell people how thankful you are that they had that experience, and then take that moment to maybe share one of your core values so that when the public reads that later, you kind of got a twofer, right? You had that parent's great experience and you got to share one of your core values. So always answer the good reviews. The ones that are challenging, yeah, you'll have to think those through. Sometimes you might want to avoid answering some because they might incite, more problems. A lot you might want to, you have the opportunity to take them offline and talk to somebody offline and say, hey, let's visit about this, and maybe you could take that down. Some, of course, we have to report occasionally if they have violated the guidelines of a
Mm-hmm.
particular platform. And some are going to be challenging, and some may be hurtful, but they might have some truth in them. And so those take some delicate tap dancing and answering. But I think that's part of maintaining your reputation, is being mindful that people are watching to see how you react, how you respond to those situations.
Absolutely. We have a customer I spoke with recently who shares, I believe, I want to say quarterly, but they said, I believe it was like, when a new program starts, which for them was maybe every 3 to 4 months. Um, they would send out a parent survey
Mm-hmm.
and gather feedback. And the ones that came back positive, there was an opportunity for them to be anonymous. But if they put in their email and their name and gave good feedback, then they asked
Mm-hmm.
them to go ahead and give those
Yeah.
um, reviews online, just to kind of add that little extra level of safeguarding. And then for the parents who did have, some constructive criticism, I'll say, they were able to reach out to them individually and then maybe
Exactly.
turn it around and then get to the review stage, because those reviews, I will say, it can be tough. It can be tough. I used to work actually for a multi-site healthcare firm, so we managed clinics, and they would not just talk about, oh, I didn't like this clinic. They'd say, oh, this doctor, I didn't like this doctor. And so with
Right.
childcare, this teacher or this owner, this director, and it can feel very personal. It can feel
Yes.
like, you know, they're truly taking issue with you as an individual,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is difficult. So, I definitely sympathize there, and I agree. It's some of them maybe warrant a response, others don't. What we always did was made sure we actually looked them up and tried to like identify internally
Right.
what that issue really may have been, and like get, our staff's kind of perspective on it before we spoke to them. And then, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because sometimes you can reach out and say, "Hey, I'm so sorry to hear that was your experience. Can you come in my office? Can we talk about this? Can we visit?" Ultimately, reviews, experiences, reputation, all of that. Our basic human instinct is everybody just wants to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to be heard, and some people may lack um, people in their lives that they can be heard by. Does that make sense? Because every once in a while you get these people who leave reviews and you're like, that was crazy. Yeah. But I've come to learn that maybe that's just somebody that has nobody to vent to. You're right, just trying to find some compassion somewhere in the situation. But ultimately, they want to be heard, and so that's a basic human component that we're always going to have. It's just unfortunate these days that it's digital and it can get so big so quick. But that's why it's important to respond. We've heard you. Thank you for that. Thank you for telling us. I think that's always going to be a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we talk about the digital marketing side of things and that more traditional side, such as print, news, leaving, working with your local pediatrician to leave books, which I think is so clever. Um, is there kind of a mix that you'd recommend between those two efforts and how much they should be spending time on digital, how much they should be
Mhm.
spending time on traditional marketing?
Um, yeah, good question. I guess I will. So the time question is hard to answer. A lot of it's going to come down to how much enrollment that you need, right? A school that needs more enrollment is going to have to spend more time and money, which is why
Sure.
it's always better to, as I say, dig the well before you're thirsty. So
Mm,
you've got to realize marketing or invitations to the public are fuel for the school. You have to constantly be fueling it.
mhm.
When you are full and you are no longer issuing invitations to people, if something should happen, there could be a big dip in enrollment, and then you're starting from a harder place. So my thought is spend time on social media, making sure that you're always showing people the culture, how loving the school is, how great the staff feels about their jobs. That's always going to be important. And of course, you can save a lot of time on
Mhm.
social media. You can through a great Canva. You're probably aware of Canva allows you to
Mhm.
load your brand guide into
Yeah.
Canva so that all people doing social media do things that look the same. And then you can pre-schedule content so you can save time there. Um, Ultimately, I do believe print has value, but I'm
Mhm.
a digital marketer. I want proof that my
Yeah.
print dollars worked. So
Yeah.
I always encourage a QR code or some kind of a special offer that people have to, bring this in or mention this so that that print worked. Or a recorded phone line so you know what phone calls came in. And again, it helps with your CRM too, because then you can obviously put into the system, hey, this is where that lead came from.
Yeah.
Digital, I love. Digital doesn't take a lot of time, especially if you're hiring someone, such as ourselves. They're going to do the work for you, but it's important that they are helping um, code things such a way, and this so that your CRM recognizes what came in from different efforts. So you can really, and this is our passion, really helping owners to say, I spent this much money on this effort. Here's the
Mhm.
proof that it worked. Here's the families that we know called or
Yeah.
toured or filled out a form on our website, and we know these converted. That's the information that I think needs just as much time as
Mhm.
anything else. I think what we're all guilty of is someone comes in to sell a marketing product, and a
Mhm.
school owner might try it, but then maybe not give the marketer everything that they need to do their job,
Mhm.
or doesn't pay attention to the results. And then that they get frustrated thinking that maybe it didn't work.
Mhm.
Um, and then they don't do anything for a long time. And then it becomes a vicious cycle. So it's really remembering what the point of the marketing is,
Mhm.
knowing what you want the steps of measurement to be so you can look for those and make sure that whatever you did, social media, um, digital marketing, that you knew the outcome, that you can measure it and know what to go back to for what actually works.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, measure, our founder, Chuck Gibbs, he
Yeah,
always used to say, you can't manage what you can't measure.
exactly.
So that's kind of, the principle that Childcare CRM was founded on and that LineLeader we try to continue to
Hmm.
expand upon. So, but it is hard in print. Like you said, print is really hard to track, but QR codes are definitely your friend. I know
Hmm.
I used, I believe it's called QR code generator in the past.
Hmm.
Very cost effective. And I'm sure you have plenty of recommendations and
Yeah, we
tools
do.
as well. So, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I think the
awesome.
thing to remember though with QR codes is sometimes when you don't if you use like a free QR code generator and you're not paying attention over time, sometimes those QR codes can get hijacked. And there's a famous story about it was Heinz 57 ketchup had used a QR code, and at some point they hadn't kept track of it, and it got hijacked. And a, a really exciting site took its place. It was a porn site. So, that QR code later, when people used it or found it, went to a whole different place other than, Heinz 57 or not, I mean, Heinz ketchup, whatever it was. So, it became a little bit spicier of a QR code. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think sometimes using a reputable QR code generator is good.
Yeah.
especially if you want to have one for your school that you can always repoint to different efforts that you're doing. So you could use it in print 1 month and then point it to something else like your uh, digital enrollment packet or your parent handbook or something, or reviews at a different time. So yeah, be
Mm.
mindful of the QR codes that you use.
Wow, wow, that's great. I had not heard of that. Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often, but again, you just need to be aware. But yeah, the QR code will tell you how many people scanned it, and that's
Yes.
what you need to know, right? That's the measurement.
Wow. That's so interesting. I'm sure you have lots of little, you know, marketing mistake stories for us. I know I've seen and done my fair share. So,
Oh, we
it's
all have, yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today. Do you feel like there's
Absolutely.
anything I missed or anything you'd like to share with the audience while we have you?
I think you covered a lot of it. I know for us personally, we've got such a passion for the possibilities, digital marketing today, and using, products like LineLeader can just be so helpful for childcare owners to really help them know that they know what's successful, they know where things are in their pipeline, they're organized, they're not missing,
Hmm.
opportunities. Parents, as your own reports have shown. I hope everybody takes the time to read your annual report because it's always so helpful. All the details y'all put in there about what you've learned about childcare's responding fast. That is just something they have to do. We didn't really cover sales processes today, but that's part of something that every owner who's about to put lots of money into marketing needs to examine their sales process before they start, because you want to make sure that phones are answered correctly, that tours are going to go well, that things are entered into the CRM LineLeader system so it can be tracked. Yeah, just super, super important to be prepared before you start doing a lot of advertising.
Yes, absolutely. And that's one thing I'd love to touch on is how, Rose Marketing has worked with Blind Leader by Childcare CRM in the past.
Mhm.
Can you share a little bit about what you're able to do for any of our customers who might be listening?
Oh, yeah. Thank you for asking. Yeah, a lot of what we're doing, especially Rashad on my team, he's our director of digital advertising. He works closely, with your team to make sure that the systems are connected, that the
Mhm.
platforms we're using for ads do in fact connect correctly with your system, so that as leads come in, we can tell which ones got the most leads, right?
Yeah.
The other things that we typically like to do is possibly help with, y'all do such a great job of coming up with the workflow for schools to follow. But a lot of times people might not have someone on staff to help make those emails beautiful. So we do
Mhm.
like to go in there and work with someone's brand guide and maybe
Mhm.
put some beautiful headers and colors and fonts, so the emails look like the brand. So that if
Mhm.
someone has driven past the school and seen the logo, been to the website and seen the branding, gone to the social media and seen the branding, we want to make sure the emails match, right? So for a lot of clients, we'll actually go in there and just kind of help dress things up a little bit, and that's always lots of fun. And then, of
Awesome.
course, reports, looking at those reports and seeing, what converted, what didn't, who's giving the best tours, how can we make this better? That's a big part of what we do with y'all as
Yeah.
far as using your product with clients.
Yes. Yeah, reports. Maybe don't love them, but you gotta have them. So,
Exactly.
their analytics has never been my absolute favorite thing to do, but it's so insightful and it really fuels a marketing strategy. So, it's great that y'all are able to offer that. And if anyone's interested in learning more about Rose Marketing, where can they go to find out more?
Sure. Our website, rosemarketingsolutions.net, because we improve your network,
Nice.
is a good place to start. They can always reach out to me. It's just Ruth Ann at rosemarketingsolutions.net, and we're happy to help in any way that we can.
Great. Awesome. Well, I will include links in the show notes, or if you're watching on YouTube, in the description below, to rosemarketingsolutions.net. And if you have any questions about how LineLeader, how Rose Marketing Solutions can optimize your LineLeader enroll platform, feel free to reach out.
Sounds great. And we do have a free digital marketing checklist. So if anybody wants that, they can just let us know. We'll send it out to them.
Great. That's great. Awesome.
Well,
Awesome.
thanks
Well,
for having me. This was fun.
yes, thanks for joining. And I'll talk to you again soon,
All
hopefully.
right. Sounds great. Thank you.